home building experiences, driveways, you want to do your roof, whatever it is, it's like people really struggle down here. When you look, at the East Coast in comparison, it's like yes, everyone has problems in the trades, but like not as much. This is another amazing episode here on the Owwll podcast. We have a husband and wife episode right here in the studio today at Owwll HQ. I'm joined by Ellie Santra, my co-host. What's up, Ellie? Welcome back to the studio.
Thanks. Not much. I'm just excited to hear about our amazing guests today.
But let's get into our guest today. This is the podcast. We get to interview such amazing influencers, CEOs, experts across the United States. And today we have Pedro as well as Eleana in the studio. So Pedro, kick things off. You have a full-time job. Now you're an entrepreneur starting, a junk removal company, and then kind of share the story of why it got started and why you're going at this with your spouse. A lot of folks, of course, it's difficult running a business with your spouse. So I'd like to dive deeper into that during today's episode.
Well, listen, first, thank you guys for having me here. I'm excited to be here and share our story and get right started with why machine gun junk.
Yeah.
So I'm a veteran, served in the Army for 9 years, and did my combat tour in Iraq, Afghanistan, and also worked as a security contractor for several companies for the Department of State, doing protection for executives, for senior congressional leadership, such as senators, you name it, any name you can drop. I probably took care of it in Afghanistan or Iraq, and the Secretary of State at the time was Hillary Clinton, and many other VIPs. And because of that background, we obviously machine gun junk. When you think of it, oh, machine gun. Well, we changed the GUN for GONE, and the reason for that is because we wanted to do something that appealed to everyone, not just a certain crowd of people, a certain political, French. It just everybody the same, that can be fun, not just like an actual guy with a machine gun as a logo, but it more like, hey, we look at it, what does that mean, and a veteran will get it immediately.
Of course. So I got to ask, who came up with it? Was it you or was it her?
So she gives me the credit, but
okay.
The reality is we have this huge whiteboard in our house. I think it's like 7 by something. It's a huge whiteboard.
Like a 6 foot whiteboard.
It's huge from her previous job. So, thank you now, CFO. And we started writing names down. One of the names was Guardians of the Junk Legacy. I think it was funny.
Sure.
We were going to town, and finally we put machine gun and then machine gun junk. And then what does that mean? Well, we can fire people's junk away. So, we ended up with the logo, and that's how it came. We ran it by our website designer and a Google Ads person, and said, this is gonna hit. This is something that is pretty catchy, and that's how it came up. And then it was, her say, my say, and we kind of merged together and say, let's do it.
Eleana, speak to the marketing side of this for a second, because you're a marketer, right? And, he's on the other side, doing 9 to 5 security details. Yes, he probably has a marketing background inside, but that's not his day to day, but it is with you. So kind of explain how the brand came alive in those early days.
Yeah. So we have always wanted to have a business of our own and try doing things that were a little less taxing on the amount of commitment and responsibility we would have to have, given that I also had a full-time corporate job, just as he did. And once I transitioned out of that, we said, okay, now our bandwidth has opened up. What other idea can we come up with and do, right? And be successful in, and really hit on all the different nodes of us wanting to mentor young men coming up in this business, which I know he's very passionate about, us being able to provide for our family and create a legacy, right? Also the philanthropic side of it. I'm very philanthropic. I'm all about empowerment. And, that from this other times you've met me, while marrying up with the sales and marketing background that I have, which, many companies have hired me to perform that and with their services and their products. And so for me, it became exciting as a new venture and to really take the reins on, okay, what does, the partnerships look like with the types of people we need to be speaking to formulate those relationships? What organizations are we going to be forming relationships with to donate the items that we receive? Because we receive all sorts
a lot of junk
of some people call it junk, other people call it, a treasure, so it's been an exciting venture to see how that framework gets built out. And now that we've done that, now it's a part of, okay, how can we handle all the business that we've been receiving?
Well, you think about the baby boomer generation, right? My parents, your parents, Ellie, it's like they never threw anything away, right? Everything that was purchased, eventually when you stop using it, went to the basement or a side closet room. Ellie, do you agree on this? Like,
yeah,
how
my
much crap
parents
do you have
are
at home?
leaving their house right now. They're moving to Florida, and they just had a junk removal company come, and it's all in the basement. Literally, when you said that, I had to laugh and it was stuff from our old house that like they never gave away, like furniture, so much like nice stuff too. But people don't know, expensive like designer furniture, but people don't know like what to do with all of that. And they didn't really want random strangers coming to our home to, give to sell on like eBay or OfferUp or whatever the websites are. But I'm curious how you said you decided you wanted to start a company together. Why junk removal? Like, where did this idea come about?
So there's always
sounds like an interesting topic right here.
Yeah.
There's always a birth of something. We tried we tried e-coms and we failed. It didn't work out. Lost a little bit of money there, but we were thinking to ourselves, let's do something that is gonna put us on the map later down the line. I still like to
tangible,
something that we can touch, something that we can have, and knowing how e-coms work, it's like one day it's here, the next day it's not. If you do business with the wrong person, things can disappear, and then you're pretty much flat. And we brainstormed and try to find something that can get us to our ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal, long range, it's for us to own commercial properties.
Okay.
That's the end goal. And how do we get there? What do we do as a stepping stone, but also build a small legacy that we can continue here while we are able to use this to get here? And junk removal was one of the things that kept popping up. And one time I went in the YouTube wormhole, as we all have, and it was not just a day, but it was weeks and weeks and research. And there's tons of video, very competitive system. And I saw it as, your typical AC companies. They're everywhere. There are hundreds of companies within, zip codes sometimes. And the way to gain business and to be successful is to providing a product, that is above everyone else. And what I see here in South Florida is that the customer service part of service is
lacking. I agree.
Let's just be honest. It absolutely sucks.
It sucks.
Yeah.
The minute you drive your car, like, my full-time job, the office is in Miami. I rarely go there, but when I do go, the minute I pass the Golden Glades or go past in 595, I'm like, oh God, I don't want to be there no more. But it's the service, it's the attitude, it's the society has been building all this, ramped up energy where people are doing you favors rather than giving you a service when you're paying for it.
Why do you think it sucks so much?
I think it's a societal thing. I think it's the stresses of everyday life, the traffic, the amount of people coming in, the different cultures into one little localized area, and on top of that, it's just the economy, the inflation, everything. People are stressed out, and also the newer generation. We're not teaching people customer service. We're not teaching people how to, a young kid, hey, hold the door for the old lady. Something as simple as that translates.
But why is like Chick-fil-A able to get it right in South Florida, but then, the other junk removal companies can't, right? So kind of talk to that.
I think it comes down to a sense of pride in, do you value the work that you're doing?
Exactly.
And a really great example is when we see kids in this country walking home from school or walking home to school, they're not excited to learn something, to receive an education so they can then go and do and become somebody in this world. We travel quite frequently, and my husband travels for work, and you see children in other countries excited, eager, willing, with a desire to want to learn so they can become somebody one day. And no matter what job they do it because they know the value that it's bringing to them, and obviously what they're getting paid to do and be there for. So I think it comes down to the sense of value, and people don't value what they do anymore.
But why in the trade so much? Because there is good service down here in certain sectors, right? You look at examples, certain restaurants, they're excellent. Like, Some obviously are not excellent. And then you look at the tech industry down here, and lots of times it's blossoming and there is great customer service or financial services, right? But when it comes to the trades, specifically in South Florida, like everyone knows, like building a pool, good luck, right? Everyone will recommend one, but even the best ones, even on the top 50 pool builder list, are like, be ready. It's not going to go well, right? Same with home building experiences, driveways. You want to do your roof, whatever it is like people really struggle down here. When you look, at the East Coast in comparison, it's like yes, everyone has problems in the trades, but like not as much.
Yeah,
Right?
like
They
that
run
more
them,
like we're from like New
they run them like
York,
tech
Philly,
businesses, I guess is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So why is it that Florida hasn't caught up? I have my 2 cents, and I'll share afterwards.
Yeah. No,
right? Because it obviously, like, the younger generation not in those industries, to be blunt, right? It is, more your old school, family operation from one generation, then the business transfers to another, and some of the kids are working for that business, right? You see that with AC companies, like you were talking about earlier. So why do you think, though, the trade specifically just cannot catch up to the other sectors when it comes to service?
Well, I mean, I think the major factor is also what you're paying your guys. Hourly rates, and from what I've seen so far, I think there's a sense of, like Eleana said, pride, and people just don't care about the jobs. They're caring about what they're making for that week, and they're not learning the trade, and they're not taking the information so that they can use and build their own company, their own AC. That's why there's a lack of welders in this country. Welders now make $250,000 a year. It's insane, right? But there's like very little of them. And what I've seen in this business is customer service. And I think that's we had that in mind. We're going to create a new company that is going to be, above and beyond customer service. So far, 5 stars out of 5 stars on Google. We got some really good reviews. Nice. And part of that is because we're constantly training our guys. We show that we care about them. Now, we know it's hard work, but we also know there's a big payoff. Example, one of our employees, Johnny, saw a beautiful couch 2 days ago. Hey, boss, can I take this? Absolutely. It's going to go to the junk, or we're going to donate it. One of the two, because we don't sell the stuff. We don't have we're not to that level where we can take something and reuse it, resell it. We're not in the level yet. However, what we do is we want to give back to the community. So that was the idea behind it. So our employees see this, so they're motivated. They're motivated. I pay them well. They're motivated. I pay them a little above average for a reason.
Plus, they make tips as well.
Plus, it's a service. It's a service
free junk too. That's could be very valuable.
Yeah.
Listen, one of my guys made $150 in one day. It's just tips alone, more than a waiter. So it's like, whoa, okay. So they like that stuff. But again, it's training. It's what you're trying, the idea and your values and your morals that you're transferring to your employees. They're seeing you from time to time get down and dirty with them. So I go out there, I get my hands dirty, put a shirt on, hat on, and I help out. And also, treating people like humans, it translates, and they will take care of your trucks, your company, as if it was theirs. And that's what I think I've seen a lack on business owners and managers, not training individuals correctly. And that's why there's a lack of, I think, service, good customer service in South Florida. That's one of the reasons. There's many.
And that was exactly what I was going to say too, is the training component, the amount of time you're spending with your team and your employees, understanding why are they actually here? Because nobody stays in a job just for the paycheck. Eventually, that's not even a factor at some point, because they can find that same paycheck somewhere else. So why would they stay with you? And understanding what motivates them. So I've asked each of our guys individually, why are you here? What will keep you here? What are some of the things that motivate you? One said, I want to learn a new set of skills. And I asked him, okay, great. With the amount of time that you've been here for, do you think you're learning that? Or do we need to do a better job at making sure we keep that in mind? Likewise with one of our other lead drivers, I asked him, what are you here for? But obviously besides the paycheck. And he's, well, I want to have my own business one day. So it's interesting when you start to ask those questions, you find out what drives people. And then you can pinpoint, okay, I want to make sure I'm spending my time, filling their cup and mentoring them in the right ways.
I love those answers, because it starts at the top with leadership, getting your hands dirty, saying the words, thank you, just being appreciative for the team around you. And it's not something you could just put on a quote board, because too often we see like, well, I tried everything. I said inspiring things on the quote board, or I sent a text message, but then you're like, okay, but you sent a text message, but then when you showed up for work, you had a bad attitude, right? It all, translate to the real world, and too often people try to fake it on social media, and then they have very high turnover in the trades, right? And they have to keep hiring, and then they go and get coaches, and the coaches kind of could tell right away. It's like, you're a bad leader, right? You have to get your hands dirty, and you can't, scream at your employees. Like, they go home to their families and they want to be excited to come to work on a Monday, right? They don't want to be like, oh, Monday, or
Exactly.
oh, I'm so excited for the weekend, right? They should be excited to do things with the brand. And I think in the trades, what I personally see is there hasn't been enough younger entrepreneurs to come into the trades to kind of layer on the technology, number one, and then two, just good communication skills, because the trades, what you have is a bit of a monopoly often, right? What happens is, like, there's 10 pool builders, right? And then you go down the list, you look at Google reviews, and you select one, or you ask for a referral, right? And then what happens is, like, all these people have been in business 30, 40 years, right? And then it gets passed over to the next generation, because a lot of times the next generation doesn't want to be in boring businesses.
Exactly.
Right. And a lot of these things that we're speaking about are not sexy, like mobile apps like Owwll, right? They're not Instagram, they're not TikTok. Everyone wants to build a unicorn in the tech industry.
Yep.
And when you look, at the fundamentals of business, they're all the same, right? It starts with leadership, hiring, firing, right? And that's going to happen with any type of business. So even though it could be a sexy brand, that is like Celsius, but eventually, 80% of all businesses end up being very, very similar. And I just see that a lot of young professionals make the mistake not realizing there's such an opportunity in the trades to either start a business or good old, taking over one, because there's so many baby boomers that literally are sitting there and say, hey, I would just give this to someone and let them pay me out in the future. Or it could be a business with $1 million of revenue, and then they could find someone to really, take on, mentor them, and through their 20s and 30s, prepare them to just do a takeover. And that person probably doesn't have enough capital to buy it, right? And they probably can't get a loan through the SBA. They don't qualify. But what they could do is say, hey, what if we literally made an agreement, and for 10 years in a row, you paid $125,000 a year to the owner, and eventually took over full ownership. So I think there's such an opportunity for anyone listening out there to utilize that strategy and layer technology over it, and it then becomes very similar, right?
Right. I mean, this is hard work. Working a full-time job, and then also, my wife. We have a 1.5-year old, a baby. We had our hands full, but being able to do what Jeff Bezos did and Elon Musk, right? Whenever they saw adversity and there's a wall and stock is dropping, they're losing business.
Yep.
They're able to see what's on the other side of that wall. That's one of the notes and messages that I took from multiple trainings that I've done with Amazon. I work for Amazon MGM Studios and Prime Video now, and it kind of rang on me, like, being able to see what's on the other side. Like that kind of train your mind to that. Never give up, never quit. Our business is not profitable. Yeah, we just started the business. However, it's in the long game, it will be. So you have to have that in mind, that, you do what you're supposed to do. You work hard, you train your people, you put the money where it needs to be. You're very frugal with the things you do. You're going to be successful no matter what. And, one of the lessons that I go back to is when I was in Iraq in 2004, I was an infantry guy, so I saw a lot of combat. Yep. And every single time I would be in a Bradley, in a mechanized vehicle, and I would just kind of pray. And then I would just pray, I never did it every day. I went to church, like everybody else. I'm not uber religious, but I prayed, to come back home in one piece. And one of the things that I saw was, I never thought I was going to get hurt. It just didn't cross my mind. I knew I was in the danger area, but I never thought I was going to get hurt, because that thought process allowed me to, show up the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and come back home. So I kind of use those little tools that I put in my toolbox years ago as a military man, and try to translate them into the civilian world now and apply them where I see fit. One of the things in leadership, first, if you cannot follow, you will never be a good leader. Right? If you cannot accept your failures, you will never be a good leader. If you can make your employees do something that you're not willing to do yourself. If you show them that, they're going to go above and beyond the extra mile. And that's the principle and at the very heart of what we're doing. In addition to that, we're employing people. We're helping people out. We're helping people pay their bills. People pay their car payments, feed themselves. And that, to me, is a greater satisfaction. And amongst a lot of the things that we do, we really feel like we're making a difference. And then, not to mention, we are donating a lot of this items. We did a house in East Boca. A guy in the finance industry made it big. His wife died 4 years ago. He's older. He's had this huge house down the street here. And all this furniture is like antique stuff. Pieces are like $15,000, $20,000. And he sold the house with it. The new owner said, I don't want it. Get rid of it. And we didn't know what to do with it. We couldn't sell it because we don't have the infrastructure for that. So we donated this item. Some of the stuff went to the employees, and we much rather do that than throw things away, because the old boomers, we don't store things away, but someone else can use it. So I get a lot of satisfaction that where always someone else is going to use the stuff that we put in the back of those trucks.
And going back to the trade industry, it could have been very easy for us to franchise with an existing company in our field. But to us, it wasn't about slapping someone else's name that's recognizable. It was about creating something from scratch that has our values, our name on it, that we want to have in the community and be able to then, like you said, one day franchise it out or have our employees buy into it so they can grow inside out.
Okay, let's talk about doing business together for a moment. Let's switch gears, right? Lots of times things go amazing, and lots of times they go south, right? I've seen this quite often on all of our podcast shows, because you want it your way, she wants it her way, and then unfortunately, you're at dinner and you guys want to talk about like the men's basketball, what's going on, with March Madness, and somehow business gets in the way, and we start talking about business. Then we're trying to go on a date, and then we're talking about business. So kind of how do you handle running a business together and and also running a family, right, with kids, marriage?
I'll start it, and I'll let her finish. So
tread lightly, she said.
Oh yeah. Then my wife is Greek, so I need to, I'll tell you one thing, a preface. We met during a boxing class.
Okay.
So that's the groundwork right there. So my wife is very strong. She's not only physically strong, she's mentally strong. She has a humongous
hard right uppercut.
Oh my God. Yeah, she's good. And when it comes to business, we created this baby together. It's almost like she birthed the baby again. We just drove through, got off the 95, went on Glades, and then we parked there for a little while, but that's where she almost gave birth, on the bridge of the 95 and Glades. And the sunlight was just coming out, and we paused the music, and while she was going through labor, she like, oh, it's beautiful. And then went right back to labor and screaming and yelling and all that. 20 minutes later, the baby was born. And with that in mind, when it comes to business, it's almost like we gave birth together to this baby, right? And Machine Gun Junk. And it's interestingly enough, we do very well when it comes to co-working and co-sharing the responsibilities. I handle the operations, and then, my wife, of course, handles all the administrative and all the other stuff, like the networking, marketing, and all that stuff that goes on behind it. So I think we have a great team. My wife can probably add to that, but we've been very fortunate in that sense, because we get along pretty good in the business mind. We think alike. We're pretty much aligned. We're almost in the same frequencies on everything.
So, and I love that you shared that. And to describe how it works on a day-to-day, given that you do still have a full-time job, which has you traveling about 55 to 60% of the month. Right now, we have him home for about a 3-week stretch, which is amazing for our team, for us as a family, because when he's traveling, then I pick up the slack from the responsibilities he has to the additional responsibilities that I have for our business. And so what that looks like is I'm not an in the weeds admin type of person. So he handles like all of the back end processes with our softwares and handling if something goes mechanically wrong with our trucks, or handling the guys, when they have to strategize, how to get from point A to B to C and then their day, and they have, 3 to 4 jobs. They have to go to the dump once or twice. So he handles that. What I handle is the social media aspect, the networking aspect, the building the relationships aspect, the, emailing all of our, new partners and property managers, responding to all of our leads, incoming leads, right? And handling that. Now, when he's not here, then I take on those responsibilities of his when he can't do them from away. In addition, he also mentioned we have a young child. So for me, in the afternoons from 3 to 7, that's my time to be mom. And I'm very unapologetic about that. So he knows that in the afternoons, I shut down to be mom and be present for our son, which is very important to me. And then he handles whatever comes up when he's home during that time. And that's just kind of how we're doing it right now.
I get the sense you're the heart of the operation, because when I think of leads, customers, relationships being built, it's like you have to, like the blood in our heart, like gets sent out all the time. Like, it's the life of every business, because everyone could start a brand like this with the brains. He's the brains, right? With all the back end software and technology integrating it in, but it doesn't do anything if there's no customers.
Exactly.
So she has to get out there and do presentations, build relationships, connect with folks, and get them over to you, right? To say, hey, now we got the trucks, we got the guys, we got the squad. So it's a good partnership. But of course, partnerships sometimes have struggles. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because social media sometimes makes everything look so perfect, right? And I like to get a little deeper on these episodes where we dive deeper into just like when shit really goes south, right? Trucks go down, right? And you're like, shit, he's away.
The driver doesn't show up.
And you're like, where the F are you? Like, I'm with the kids, it's 3 to 7, like, but a customer needs a call, right? And then, there's guys there, like, you got to step in, he's away. And sometimes, relationships, you get in under each other's skin at time. Like, no relationship's perfect. I've been married for 12 years now, right? And it's always going to be a struggle when you're dealing with calls coming in on your cell phone device at 9:00 at night, text messages, emails, and also just like having a bad day. We all are guilty of having those days where we come home, we feel like shit, and then somehow like the other partner says something and you're like, really? I'm having the shittiest day of my life and you have to do this now, right? So talk about like the hardest thing running a business together, and a real like story, that came from it.
I think the hardest thing is when you have a 1.5-year-old, which you can't control.
Yeah.
And he has to step out to go to the front driveway because he can hear the little one screaming from inside. That's the hardest part that we have to deal with right now, when our little one is just having an emotional meltdown and we still have to show up, not just for each other, but for our business. And it is the last thing that we both need, is to deal with that breakdown.
I think that's probably up to this point, the hardest challenge, because we do have a very active child. And I mean, one of my sons is in the military. He's an Army Ranger. So all my kids they have that, I don't know if it's testosterone overload or what it is, Greek Peruvian baby. But that's the hardest challenge, and it does affect your business in the way you run it. So if I got to take a call, obviously I cannot take it with the baby screaming in the background. The customer hears that and they're done. They're turned off.
Yeah.
So that's one of them. The other part is, it is difficult because I do work a full-time job and I'm committed to that job. Monday to Friday. 8 to 5. Sometimes Saturdays I got to be committed to that. So I do squeeze my time very carefully to make sure that my job doesn't get affected in any way with what I'm doing now, because that's our main source of income. So, the other challenge is in the weekend stuff. That's the hard part, when we want to be together on the couch and watch movies, catch up on shows, and I have to do research on shows myself. Like if I'm going to work, for example, we got Ricky Staniki, I got to watch the show because I'm going to go work it. And if I can't do that because of the child or company issues, that can put stress in any relationship. But the way we've handled that, to answer your question, is we kind of take it one step at a time. We can't do it all at once. So we put this aside over here and we'll take care of issue number 1. And then we'll address that. Done. Issue number 2. So that's kind of the methodology that we've been using. However, it's not perfect. We're going to, we get stressed. I see my wife stressed out with the baby sometimes, and I just jump in and kind of move her out of the way and just take the baby and then take him outside or do something. And then she's able to handle an email for work, or she's able to do editing for her podcast and whatnot. So it's challenging. But again, we're because of the dynamics that her and I have, we're able to manage and tackle it a little different, I guess, than average. That's the reason why we're successful right now.
Yeah. And, talk about another struggle, like Pedro mentioned, juggling 2 jobs, right? So his main job is our main source of income. And then a new company requires a lot of you because it will not run without you.
Oh, yeah.
And so for us to have a lot of output right now, it can drain you. So unless you're filling your cup and giving back. So that's one of the things that we've made sure is set in stone in our foundation. And it came into play once our son came in the world, because that can destroy a lot of couples when you have a child. And it's a complete night and day shift in your dynamic. Now you have no time for each other, let alone the next birth of a business. So we make sure that we still give back to ourselves at least, 1 to 2 hours into our day, whether it's in the evening, or we say, hey, I have this thing going on today. Do you want to come with me so we can at least be together?
Sure.
And that really helps us make sure that we're on the same page, that we're connected, so that when the hard times do appear, or like our driver didn't show up, or, we had 3 cancellations in the day. And because we're still new, every bit of business counts till we get to that point of our break-even point to extend the life of our capital that we have for operating expenses. So yes, there are those types of struggles that happen, but I think the main core, especially for your husband and wife dynamic, is to make sure that you're both connected. And if you're not, how can you do that?
Clear communication, always communicate, transparency, and then just setting the roles, right? So that we're not jumping on top of each other.
Yeah. And everyone's been in that situation where you have lack of sleep.
Oh,
yeah. The first year of a newborn, I was like, is my heart okay? Like, doesn't feel correct, right? You wake up in the middle of the night, it's your turn to change the diaper. It's your turn. And you're like, F you, I did 4 days in a row. I had a bad day at work. How could you do this? You do it. You've been home all day, right? Like, it's just natural, right? And everyone has to overcome it. That part doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or you have a 9 to 5. It's just, it's hard during those early years. And you guys are juggling a crap load together, right? So, hats off to both of you.
And then in addition, I have my own podcast and other, personal things that I do for my own brand. So we do have the combination of a lot.
Yeah, I was going to ask you more to go into detail about your podcast. I know you're just starting to launch it. Tell everybody what it's about and where they can find you and all that.
Yeah. Thank you, Ellie. Yeah. So my podcast was born and birthed into the world. I'm birthing so many things.
Yeah.
You are.
This is your year.
Careful there.
So Elevate Your Life with Eleana Palomino is the name of my podcast. And it was birthed about 7 months ago. We update episodes on a weekly basis, and we really focus on women empowerment. So going through the different phases of our life, sharing those life experiences in a format that we can all learn and grow to be better and more evolved and elevated. And in addition, I also bring on really inspiring guests, and we share different tools. My favorite just dropped this week, actually, on human design.
Oh, I love human design.
Yeah. And the gene keys, which I had no idea that was even a thing. So it's a creative outlet and a way for us to come together, learn, grow, and be inspired.
And are those in-person episodes? Are they virtual?
They are virtual until our business gets to a point where we can have them in person.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, this is the part of the show we're going to start calling experts that are on the Owwll app. So I'm ringing someone in right now. She runs a business with her husband, so this was by design. So hopefully she answers. She recently just got into Owwll, so this will be cool. She'll have no idea that we're pulling her into the Owwll podcast live.
I'm curious, actually, just in terms of like the donations for the furniture and like other items that you guys get, is that mostly like local donations, or like nationally you can send them like in terms of different charities, or if there was someone that, families that needed that kind of thing, like how does that work?
Great question. So currently it's all local. Okay. We don't ship anything out right now. We've been approached from different people who are experts in, have shipping companies or, really great at reselling items and want to take that on. And maybe in the future we'll entertain that. But for right now, we are donating to, the local areas that are closest to where our trucks are, because we need to unload our trucks as quickly as possible to keep them empty for new jobs.
Just for people listening, like if someone, is it mainly just like companies, or would you give to like an individual in the area that like wanted furniture, for example?
Well, I'm a very gifting person.
Yeah.
So if there's somebody out there listening to us that has someone that needs something, give us a call. Give us a call and let us know. And if they're looking for a certain type of couch, bed frame, whatnot, then I'll make a note and tell my guys, hey, next bed you got, let me know. Send me a picture of it, and we'll send it to the guy. You want it? Come pick it up.
Okay.
That's the kind of thing we're doing now. And then second, we do Salvation Army, we do Goodwill, and then we're now starting we're in the conversations and dialogue to branch out to different organizations within Palm Beach and Miami-Dade County and Broward County.
Okay.
Yeah. And the main things we get are furniture
I
items.
figured.
Yeah. Mainly furniture, some mattresses.
Well, mattresses, we try not to donate those. We try to get rid of those. However, like bed frames, and then the box springs, we make sure that there's no bed bugs in it. We do our due diligence. And another thing that we do, talking about our parents and basements and all this stuff, we do a lot of hospice facilities and nursing homes, and there's always somebody that's in their last days, and their daughter or sons, or the facility itself calls us and they're asking us, how do we do this? And we do approach these scenarios in a very different way. We are a white gloves, the trash removal, junk removal service, basically, right? we don't take biological waste. We take solid waste pretty much, and we donate what we can. However, when it comes to people in their deathbeds, hospice, people that just passed away, we really put on the kid gloves on it, and we try to be as compassionate as possible when it comes to taking care of getting rid of items that have meaning to people. And a son or daughter that grew up with this little dresser, it's like, oh my God, we don't just grab in there and throw it in the back of the truck. We actually show the customer that we care, and we ask the customer, would you prefer us to donate it? And a lot of times, we will send the customer a receipt of donation so they understand that it was donated and not sold. We're not in business to sell things.
Yeah.
That's not our business. However, we are in business to be a servant to the community and to help out everyone within the community. And we want to be better than all the competition.
Yeah.
We want people to say Machine Gun Junk, they took care of us, and whatnot. So yeah.
That's amazing.
Hey, Will, you are live on the Owwll podcast.
Thank you for the call. I appreciate all. I really do. So super quick, my work basic is regarding people who, usually mothers and fathers, who are in high conflict situations, whether it's going through divorce or whether it's co-parenting. There's ways to deal with it. And one quick caveat is I helped a woman in the UK where her ex-husband, they've been divorced for a number of years. And for years, he refused to let them travel, especially the child, the mother's child, travel to the US to see a very sick grandfather. And within 6 months or less, just words alone, no court, no whatever, we were able to get her passport signed and the travel letter, so she was able to see a very sick grandfather. So that's, in a nutshell, what I do.
Wow.
I could have used you when I was a kid going through that.
And on the mic because he can't hear you.
Oh, I said that I could have used your services as a kid. That would have been very helpful.
Oh, I appreciate that. Unfortunately, people need, this kind of service, and I'm sorry that you had to go through what you were going through. So
Thanks.
Do you have a question for him that comes to mind?
Yeah. What made you get into that dynamic? Because that's a lot to take on. Everybody has different fight responses, and how'd you get into that? And then how do you help people come to their senses?
So I've had my own set of personal journeys, whether it's weight, whether it's severe bullying, being bullied by others, I should say, whether it's my own divorce. There's a number of pieces. But ultimately, I was doing special victims investigations, so human trafficking, sex abuse, the heavy stuff for 15 years.
Wow.
And while doing that, there was a pattern that I started to see, and I was slowly able to help those when I was working for the government. And so then I've left the government, and now I do what I do because I feel I can have a greater impact using the tools and techniques from there and other places that I pick up along the way to help people regain their power and live their best life as possible. And especially for their kids, so their kids don't have their own or have less issues. And we don't have generation upon generation of things happening, or less of it anyway.
Very powerful. I'm going to pass the phone to my husband, Pedro, who I'm sure has a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Hey, how's it going? So it's not more of a question. I went through this, I went through a divorce, and I understand the power in communicating and ensuring that people just give in, and that's kind of what happened to me with my older son. Fast forward, 25 years, her mother and we get along great, now. So it's communication is everything. And I think what you're doing is it's admirable. I mean, there's so many things that happen to children when they're coming up, growing up, especially when they start hitting the preteens and teens years, that can be very, very detrimental to their upbringing as an adult, to, young adult, and then they become susceptible to, human trafficking, to preying by people, manipulators out there, so many different things. So I think what you're doing is admirable. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that. And thank you for your comments. One quick thing is that I'm sure when you were going through the divorce and even just afterwards, obviously there's raw emotions, or maybe you didn't see eye to eye, or those kinds of things. And that's where I help the mother or the father, where they're able to show the other parent reasons why there shouldn't be as much animosity. There's always going to be some conflict. There's going to be some emotional residue or whatever. But to lessen it or to lower that temperature as quickly as possible to get to proper results, that's some of the stuff. And like you said, 20 whatever years later, you've come to common ground because you're, I'm going to assume, able to see past a lot of the emotional fog, let's call it. And that's very important. And that's sort of a great illustration of, what I try to do is recognize the emotions, recognize what is there, but also understand how to get through that, to process it properly, but how to get through it, and then ultimately have good results or achieve what you want to achieve. So I'm really proud of you guys, or especially you, sir, for coming to that on your own or through learning or whatever, because that's not an easy journey. It's a very hard journey to do.
It is very hard. Thank you so much for this. Amazing.
Sure. Absolutely.
Will, thank you for joining us on the Owwll podcast today. We always appreciate you joining us. And Will was one of our past guests. I forget what episode, nice. 10 or 15 in that range, but always appreciate your tips, Will. Take care.
I appreciate it. It was earlier on. It was 4 or 5, but that's okay. Take care.
I'm so deep into this, I don't remember anymore.
So we'll have to tell Will this afterwards, but the result of the work that Pedro did coming, through a situation where he co-parented, he did so good that it actually is what attracted me to him, to feel safe enough to get to know him more when we first met, because I met his ex-wife before I met Pedro.
This is very true.
In the same room with their son. And the vibe that I got was, wow, I don't have a memory of my parents being in the same room to this day for me for anything. And the fact that they could do that together for their son. And she was I don't know who they were. They were strangers to me.
Sure.
But it showed me, wow, I respect these people. And then, we locked eyes, shook hands. And
do I have a couple seconds? Yeah. So
the rest is history.
So let's give some context to how this happened. So I was taking my son to this boxing class here down in Boca, and then she happened to be there at the same time. And I told, my son Pedro's mom's, Erica, hey, you coming in? You flying in? What time are you getting in? I'm getting in at 6. If you hurry up, you can see little Pedro box one last time. And then she walks in. We all, I met her outside. We're all walking together. And then the first thing I do, I lock eyes with Eleana, and then I kind of just, the first thing she does, because she's bubbly, she talks to everybody. She talks to my ex-wife, and I'm like, oh gosh. So I just kind of like started walking away a little bit, and kind of like on my own in a little corner, doing one of these, and then eventually, we met, and she kind of got the picture that we were there supporting our son, and going back to what the gentleman was saying is always think of the child first before thinking about your raw emotions and yourself, because at the end of the day, all the child is going to remember is how often you and your former spouse, partner, whatnot, argued about and why. But what the child needs to see is you co-parenting together and seeing one team, one front, although you guys are no longer together. And now your child has growing up with no animosity towards either one of the parents. And that's exactly what we have. We have an amazing son. He's a great, bubbly, kid. And, his mom and I were constantly in constant communication. We're staying on top of his grades. He knows he can't play one or the other. And that's because he never heard me once say anything negative about my ex, and he's never heard, her say anything negative about me. And that's kind of what we foster. And it's because I learned my lessons throughout life that, I grew up with my parents being split, and it's you don't want to repeat, what you've been taught, subconsciously, unconsciously, inconsciously, as you grow up, you see your parents, being a little violent with each other. I had a rough childhood, coming from Peru to here. And I just didn't want to repeat that for my child. And this is where we're at now. So, yeah, amazing.
That's awesome, because so often, unfortunately, people break up and, courts, lawyers, right? Just like take the worst out of people, unfortunately, especially when money is involved. And it doesn't start out that bad, but somehow it gets bloody, right? And you hear these stories, and it has to be repaired, right? And sometimes it never does, right? And the poor child just watches the parents, bicker and bicker, and it's unfortunate, and it's awesome to see that early on you didn't want that experience, and nor did your ex, and thankfully you could be in the same room together, smile, take photos, and you picked up on that, and you're like, okay, it just, they weren't compatible. It was simple as like, they realized that, they split up, and they wish the best for one another, right? And I wish more people could be like that, right?
It tells you the amount of quality a person has when they're able to recognize, this is bigger than me. This is not about me anymore. It's about my child. And I think as a child, the greatest aspect you have to overcome is forgiving without an apology. Because sometimes an apology from a parent for whatever they did or didn't will never come.
I love that. I just got
true.
I got the tingles from that, because I think just running a business the same way, right? It's like, so often we know in cases where we're right. And we're waiting for, someone to say, hey, I screwed up. I was mean to you on that email. I was mean to you on that social media message, or I was mean to you in person. I had a rough day and I took it out on you, and it never comes. Yeah. People to step up to say they were wrong, comes this often. And sometimes you have to realize, like, hey, lots of times it's not you. I tell that to my wife all the time. She struggles with some of her friends, and I'm always like, it's not you. It's like, it's them. Like, as long as you put good in this world, and, friends of yours are, having some moment in their life and they're taking it out on you for some odd reason, I go, move the F on. Don't think twice, and don't worry about that, because you can't always be looking over your shoulders and think, well, did I do something, to that individual? Like, why, when, where? And I'm the same way with running Owwll. I have a lot of supporters, but no matter what, as you scale any business or any app like Owwll, you're going to have people that jump in and react. And, especially when there's money involved, right? Like, someone puts in $10 into Owwll, they don't value it enough. Like, emails start flying, right? Reviews start flying. Mm-hmm. And no matter what you say, you can't change their opinion sometimes. Mm-hmm. You could say, hey, let's jump on a call, do a one-on-one with you, and I'll explain what's happening. And I would love to help you really navigate our platform better. Nope, they're done.
Yep.
F you. All right. So I just look at it as like, it's that what you just said is so important in life in general, not just running a business for us.
And it helps you get unstuck. Going back to our business, right? So how to correlate. So the quality of our leads is also something we've had to come to terms with, because there's so many times where, we get tons of inbound leads, and it's about, okay, so how much will this cost? What would the quote be? And, many people leave you ghost. They don't
More
respond
often than
afterwards,
not, yeah.
right? And so we've also had to recognize, okay, is this the type of, is the quality of leads that we're getting and what we actually want? Does it match where we're headed in our company? So many people can get discouraged. Oh, it's not working. Well, maybe you're targeting the wrong people. Maybe you're targeting the wrong audience. So going back to your values and the type of service you provide, you don't want to dumb down that service, right?
No.
So then it's lining yourself up with the right audience.
Which is always hard in business, because you're like, I need to pay the bills, right? So often you keep letting ones in the door, and then it creates bad reviews, bad experience, because you can't ever make that crowd happy. And then it's kind of like, next month we're going to get a better niche type of clientele, right? And it all comes back to relationships, right? Like, back to, the benefit of Owwll, why it was created is relationships mean everything in this world, right? When you look at successful entrepreneurs, the value of like that one relationship that helped them get to the next level. And when it comes to building your brand, right? Like that house you spoke about in Boca, right? That was a very wealthy individual. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Like, that did not come through Google, I'm assuming.
No.
How did you find that customer?
I can't tell you the story. It's amazing. We have a house in Boca, in Lotus. I don't know if
Okay.
you're familiar with it. Across the street from
I
Boca
play
Bridges.
I play pickleball across the street at Boca Bridges.
Yeah. So we lived there for a couple of years, and then we decided to move to a smaller place, but we didn't want to sell our house. So we're like, okay, let's rent the house. We rented the house. Well, the realtor that helped us with it, he actually helped me relocate back to Florida after being gone for 14 years. And, talking to him, I said, listen, we have a junk removal company, put us out there. Boom. 2 weeks later, we got a lead, and it was Mr. X, here in East Boca. And, we went and did a job. It was kind of technical. It was a beautiful house. We had to take things apart, very heavy items. I actually showed up to help out. And he said, hey, come back in a couple of days. I might have another thing for you.
Nice.
And next thing you know, it was another truck. And, we do charge, a certain amount for a full truck. And then we did 2 trucks, and then he called us again and again.
Nice.
And again, I swear, we ended up doing over $5,000 worth of business with this guy.
Mm.
And, now he moved to Boynton Beach, to a smaller house. I have more stuff. I'll give you guys a call. So what happened is the guy actually enjoyed not only the conversation that we built a rapport. I was there, talked to him, tell him a little bit about myself.
Sure.
The guy was Japanese by birth, and it happens that my brother is a professional fighter for BKFC, and he's married to a Japanese woman. So we just kind of touched on that, and boom, there was a connection right there. I'm not a salesperson, but I was a recruiter for the Army at one point, so I sold the Army a lot, and I was able to.
He loves people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a salesman.
I love people, so
I'm not buying it.
so I talked, we really went above and beyond. We didn't charge him. We could charge him so much more. We didn't. We stuck, to our lines. There was an opportunity there to build a relationship, because what we're looking for is not that, a couple $1,000s or $500. We're looking for that individual to tell his neighbor and his friend, his cousin, and his, so on and so forth. And because that's how you build a business, word of mouth, relationship building.
I mean, you said one thing that stuck out to me: rapport. Right? It's a lost art. Right? People go in selling and not listening, and just building rapport, just asking someone, oh, why are you moving to Boynton Beach? So a simple question like that, open-ended, like, oh, well, my grandchildren moved there, and I decided I want to move closer to them. Oh, how old are your grandchildren? Oh, they like sports, just like open-ended questions that show you care and you're listening, and not always just like, we're the best service in the world, right? We remove junk quicker, better. We have cool trucks, a cool logo. Nope. No gives a shit.
Okay,
right? What they care about is that you're listening and you're caring for their needs. And that's, again, going back to sales and marketing. It's like people really want to work with brands like that more frequently. And those are the brands that get their ideal client, going back to the original question, right? The ideal client is hard to achieve because everyone wants to take a shortcut.
Right.
Everyone wants to put a social media post up and then funnel their ideal client to them, and it naturally come in. Right. But the truth of the matter is, the ideal clients come through relationships, and then those relationships turn into word of mouth and referrals. And then you get more.
Well, real quick, let me add.
People just don't take enough time.
Yeah. Let me add this real quick. So also going above and beyond, going the extra mile. That is so important. We had an elderly lady at a retirement home, and she wanted us to take a table, 6 chairs, and an old couch. But then she had a brand new couch that she had already been delivered in the front porch, and this huge carpet. So our job is not to bring things in. Our job is to take things out. So, and it was technical. We had to cut a bunch of things to get to it, take the door apart, all this stuff. So we did the job real quick, and she asked, hey, can you guys do me a favor and do this? The job took us 25 minutes.
Yeah.
But to bring her stuff in and set it up the way she wanted, it took us another 45 minutes. I was there for that job. So we went above and beyond. We took care of this lady. And what did she do? Because of her, we got 2 referrals in the same building. So it's also going above and beyond and having compassion. This lady is in her 80s. She can't pick up any of this furniture. So I told the guys, let's help her out. Even though we took an extra 45 minutes, we pay the guys. Doesn't matter. We're going to help her out. So going above and beyond, and 3 things that I will tell people in this is, recruiting, attrition, and retention. So, in different worlds, different things. When you get your leads, you get your jobs done, make sure there's an attrition program. We send people thank you cards, we send them a list of different partners that we have, vendors and whatnot, and a little magnet for their fridge. And then we follow up every 6 months. That's the rule now. We're going to follow up every 6 months, make sure everything's good. Can we help you? Is there anything else you need? Anyone else that you want to refer us to? Because that's how you retain your customer base. And 30 to 40% of this business is return customers.
That's awesome. And sometimes as simple as just calling them, say hello, right? It's not all these crazy funnels and social media post is like, hey, just calling to see, how things are. They're naturally going to tell you how they are. And then if they need your service, right? So we're getting into our favorite part of the show, me and Ellie, where we place a bet with the guests, right? Because, we have so many members like yourself in our community that join Owwll, and, we want to see them blossom and build rich relationships and turn into more business really for you guys, but then also an opportunity for our community to connect and learn from you guys as well. Just share the knowledge that both of you have. So we're going to place a bet, right? And if you accomplish this in the next 7 days, you get to win something, right? You just started a podcast. So it could be, you want to use our studio, for example, to bring in your own guests, and we'll hand over the keys one week. That could be one example. It could be number two, the next big event that I'm partnered with. We let you be a co-host on the Owwll Interactive Podcast booth, like you saw at Elevate 2024. Could be I try to get you as a speaker at a next event. I'm doing a lot with the South Florida Tech Hub. They want me to come on board to really help them fill a lot of the speaker positions to get bigger entrepreneurs into their community. Lots of times they have the usual suspects that come out. I'm sitting here like, hey, I got 300-400 people's cell phone numbers that I could text and instantly get them on the stage. And, a lot of business owners are so busy, they just ignore, speaking engagements. But when I text them like, hey, we have a big event coming up, for South Florida Tech Hub, they're like, oh, sure. It's 30 minutes out of my day. I'll come on by. Right. And those are just some examples. So we'll start with, what do you want to bet? And then we're going to ask for something after we see how high of a bet that what you guys want. And then we're going to set the terms. And it's going to be based on something within the
Could
hour.
even be like a sponsorship, like for a big event where like we put their company's like logo, something like that too,
So what comes to mind? She's getting excited on a lot of the podcast stuff. I could sense.
So I like utilizing the studio actually.
Okay.
Because I do currently record virtually, and for some of my local guests, it'd be amazing to have an in-person place to meet them. Because again, the way you build a rapport is that belly-to-belly connection.
Okay, so we're going to give you access to shoot an episode in our studio. You could put an image up on the TV, of course. Quite easy to switch it around for your audience. Okay, so Ellie, what does she need to do to get that?
What's the challenge?
She's got a very busy lifestyle right here.
I know.
Right. So she's going to have to, we're going to have to set the bar to a certain level where it's going to be like her making outbound calls, I think, in the car, because she's a busy individual.
Yeah.
And the only way to kind of get calls completed is to kind of do it in between what she's currently doing. It's not going to do it 3 to 7 while watching the kids.
That's what
so I'd like
I know. I don't want to make it impossible for you. I think, well, 2 things. One, I would say 5. I think 5 calls is fair. Outbound. So going onto the app, literally just looking people up, seeing who's live, searching different industries, and within this week, so by next Wednesday, just making 5 calls. They're typically 10-minute calls. So finding time in your day, you could do 1 call a day for 10 minutes. And then I also thought it would be interesting to throw in there on our community connection hub. Like, I don't know if there's an opportunity where you guys have a house where, they're giving some furniture away or something. So we have a board sort of thing, like on our app. So it's kind of like a Facebook group where you would say, hey, I have this furniture, blah, 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 whatever that I'm giving away. If anybody local in the South Florida area wants it, or of somebody that would want it, let us know. And then you just post it on the board and
interesting
on Owwll. So I think that'd be kind of cool to just kind of the next time that you guys have, something available to just post on there and see what comes of it. I mean, that's really a benefit for you because you might build some relationships there as well. But
I might even show up.
I think those 2 things, I don't know.
Okay.
Let's do it.
She has to do the 5 calls. He has to do 1 post.
5 calls
there you
and
go.
1 post. Yeah.
He has to post.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What do we want?
Easy peasy.
So if you guys don't complete that,
then
what do we get?
Yeah, that's it.
I know. I'm like, do I need my
free junk removal?
I live in a cottage, so I have no room for anything.
No, in all seriousness, like my mom really needs help. My father passed away in October, and my dad owned a store in New York City called Captain Hooks. He had more crap than you can imagine by any human being. Like he's up there, right? Because And most of the stuff's not in Florida, though. Most of it's up
That's
in
the
New York.
thing. I was
He
like,
got rid of most of it, but
local.
no, what we do is condo has a lot of stuff. And my
uh,
mom will never get rid of it. It's just sitting there, and we're like, Mom, you got to get rid of this stuff. And sometimes, like, people don't realize it's not expensive shit. Some stuff's expensive up north. Down here, we're talking like there's extra chairs in the corner. There's literally sheets of glass. My dad, that old school generation would go to the flea market or garage sale and be like, these glass sheets are worth money, and just store them in the apartment. Like, Mom, why do you have like 10 sheets of glass up there? And like my dad would eventually like make a table out of it. And there's too many tables. So there's just too much shit in a nutshell. Right.
I have an idea.
So my part of the deal is like, you said free junk removal. I was like, yours, send you my mama's. Right. And we're moving some crap.
Yeah. I think your software over there has some kind of mind reading, because we have actually come up with an idea. Actually, my wife did, where we are going to do maybe once a month. We're going to go and we're going to put it on social everywhere, and we're going to go do somebody's house for free. So we can start here.
Deal. That's a deal.
Done.
Mama, you're listening. She does listen to a lot of these episodes.
It'll be all over TikTok, though.
You're going on social
I feel like both
media.
our moms.
You're going to be famous.
You're asking who watches our moms. I'm just kidding, but they do.
They absolutely do.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
proud of us.
It'll be on TikTok and Instagram. We have a partnership with AJ Bufumo. Him and his son go to Costco and do videos on Costco. Little Big Justice, and they have like 7 million plus followers, views on their
10 million
stuff. 10 million
Costco
views,
video.
and
Wow.
he's our partner now.
Nice.
And so when we do the video for your parents, we will post it out there, and it'll be all over the place. It'll be awesome. It'll be cool. It's very interactive.
You want to really go? Well, you got fly up to New York. You'll see all my dad.
Oh
shit.
man.
No, I'm being serious. Like he is a legend. He had a store in New York City called Captain Hook's. Well,
Oh wow.
so he sold for 30 years. Anything you've seen on the Titanic, some of his stuff, would be in movie sets, because they'd come to his store. And these are the days where there was no eBay, right? So his store had more antiques than anything in the entire world. Right? He was in the New York Times multiple times. When he passed away, he made it in the New York Times as well. So he still has so much stuff. You got like whales.
That'll be a good episode.
turtles. So
If
one
you
day,
guys
one day we can get you up to the heart of it.
We'll drive our trucks pretty far.
Yes. Well,
And we have partners, with the
of
different
course.
junk removal companies, and whatnot. So yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Nice.
thank you guys for joining us on the Owwll podcast today. Everybody listening, we listed them under the featured Owwll category. So go ahead and make sure you follow them. And when they make themselves available, you will receive a notification, and give them a ring, because until they get up to 10 calls, they cannot change their price from a $1 price. So it gives you the ability to gain knowledge practically for free. And eventually they're going to up that price, because they're busy individuals, as they mentioned during the show. So definitely get in there, connect with them, and learn, of course. Well, that's today's episode. Take care, everybody.
Post-production for the Owwll podcast is done with care by Ocean Tree Creative.